lesson learned is you look at those 3 handlers, those 3 original handlers, the 2 that had just push button easier dogs, not easy, but easier dogs. Then you had Ken, who had the toughest dog. And though nothing against those other 2 handlers, but who became the best is the one who had the biggest challenges, who sought out, humbled himself and sought out other information.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Solid. Good to be with you all here today. My co-host Jeff Fieldstead is not with us today, so we can talk about him behind his back.
Perfect.
Because he's not here. So, but I better be careful because I'll probably be down the road when he does one without me.
Yeah, there you go.
So
Comes back around.
I got to remember that. But excited to be with everybody today and have some special guests here with us. I've got a couple good friends of mine and Jeff as well, Ken Purdy and Marc Nichols. And they actually, I wanted to have them on for several reasons. One is they're really good men, hardworking men, great family men. They've got great marriages, great kids. And then they've also had great careers in the law enforcement industry and in different aspects of that as well. Not just law enforcement, but a lot that has to do with law enforcement. Ken's still involved with it a lot. Marc, you might be a little bit still too as well. And then Ken's done a lot with the K9 unit through the years, so he's a great dog trainer also. So anyway, I just excited to have them on. I wanted to just kind of really get the level of awareness out there of what law enforcement people do for us. We're very thankful for them. They're underpaid for all that they go through, but I think a lot of them do it. I know Marc and Ken didn't just do it for the money. They did it because they really enjoyed helping and serving other people. So I'm grateful for that. Grateful that you guys have spent your lives serving other people and protecting all of us, doing things behind the scenes that we don't even see to keep us safe, right? So Marc, you've got 4 kids.
Yes.
You're a grandpa now.
I am a grandpa.
That's pretty crazy.
I'm accepting it more.
Good for you.
Ken,
you don't look like a grandpa.
Thank you.
That's a good thing.
You don't look. Yeah, that's true.
You only say that because it's coming right up sometime in the next year or so for you.
No, because I'm a lot more grayer than you, and you have grandkids. So I'm not yet.
Ken, you have 4 kids.
Yep, 4 kids.
So, and you're almost an empty nester.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
not quite.
2 weeks ago. She's going to play softball at Salt Lake Community College. So I took her down maybe about a month ago.
Cool.
I think every time she comes home and leaves, I cry. And my wife's like, "What?"
So she doesn't cry, but you do.
I do. I do. She drives off, and I'm like, bye.
It's his only daughter. So he's got 4 boys and her.
Yeah,
so
3 boys and her, and she was the last one. And now we are officially empty nesters.
All right. How's your wife? How's Carrie doing with that?
She loves it.
Yeah.
She loves it.
She's got some freedom.
She wants them to come back and visit, like on a schedule. I'm like, hey, that's not how life works. She's like, wait a minute, you're gonna come see your mom. So
true. And you're still in Heber.
Yep, still in Heber.
Yeah,
never left.
Love it up there.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah,
love it.
Very good. And Marc, you're here in St. George.
Right.
Yep. Well, good.
Loving it.
Well, good. Well, we could go so many different directions today.
Sure.
There's so many things that you guys have done. You know, we've known each other for 15 years or something like that. Long time. So we've had an opportunity to see each other in business and just work ethic and everything that I guess happens in life. But maybe we should start off. God, I don't know. Maybe we should start off with. What do you want to talk about your careers early on? Or?
Let me just say this. The first thing that came to my mind when you introduced this and you said thanks for your service and everything, and I think you kind of fit that bill too, because you've done a lot for families, done a lot for me. Your example and leadership, and you don't have to be a cop to do that, right? And there's a bad egg in every industry, right? But I mean, I just kind of sat here and work. We've kind of been reacquainted. It's been a few years since I've met you or talked to you again, and you've done a lot for us. I mean, so don't discount yourself. You don't have to wear a badge and a gun to change people's lives. So
thanks.
You've done a lot with that, Brandon. So I appreciate you, man.
Yeah,
you have a great family too.
Yeah,
by the way.
Yeah, I got 4 kids too. So we've all got 4. We know what that's
and
like.
And a great wife, and you guys. Yeah, you're lucky, man.
Thank goodness. Yeah, very blessed.
Yeah, we both are. We all are. Yeah, our wives keep things together, but
Yeah,
But yeah.
that's true. The wives do
Definitely.
definitely keep us together. That is absolutely true. Well, good. Well, maybe let's start off with just your stories of how you guys got involved. Maybe even a little bit about growing up. So maybe Mark, why don't you go first? How you grew up, lessons you learned growing up, how you started your career, and just maybe a 3, 4, 5 minute story if you can fit it into that.
Absolutely. So I grew up wanting to be in law enforcement. Watching Chips.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The old, California Highway Patrol show and Dukes
The
of
original
Hazzard.
Chips, not the
No, the original, yeah. And my uncle influenced me as well. He was in law enforcement for 34 years, and so I grew up really looking up to him. My dad wasn't directly in law enforcement. He was in search and rescue in Utah County for decades. And so I grew up admiring that. I remember my first search that I went on, my recovery of a young boy who fell into a river, and going on that search with him and just that interaction. So I've got one brother, one sister, and grew up in Utah, and been married now for 26 years. And like you mentioned, a 1-month-old grandbaby and 2 still in the home. Still involved in law enforcement somewhat, in the sense, not directly, but more supporting. We're actually starting, and maybe we'll get into this in a little bit, of what the community can do for law enforcement going through all these challenging times in today's society. I'm part of a peer group. We've started a nonprofit to help support law enforcement, part of a peer group, because law enforcement needs some major help, some transition, some mindset changes, even from the officer's standpoint, with everything going on, to help them deal with things outside of law enforcement, like their marriage and their family and their kids and being a dad or being a mom. There's a lot of females in fact, just the other day was a National Female Law Enforcement Day.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
So they're being recognized as well.
Very cool. Yeah, I remember, Mark, meeting you the first time, and sitting out with you and Jen. We're actually doing in our financial business, right? That was the first time I met you. We were talking about that and how passionate you were about just what you did for a living. In fact, you were so passionate about it, you loved it so much, you said, there's nothing I'd ever do to leave that, right?
0% chance I would loved it.
Yeah. And I said, what do you love about it so much? You go, well, man, I get to drive fast cars or drive fast and shoot a lot of bullets and all the cool stuff. And then obviously, you're out helping people, which is always very rewarding. And I just always admired that about you. And then hearing about your reputation as I met like Ken, and talking about you, just how you were the toughest guy on the force, just Ken would talk about how you'd go and kick some butt when you need to kick some butt.
I got a great story about how I met him. I'll have to
we
get
got to
into
hear
that.
that.
This is our first time that you actually had ever known anything about me.
Yeah. So anyway, it was good to meet you back then, and you did end up actually joining me in business anyway. And we did some awesome stuff together. You set some records, and it's just, you've had a tremendous amount of success, and
good
still
in
your financial business now. A good leader, great leader, absolutely. So, okay, awesome. Well, Ken, you go. Tell us your story.
I grew up not wanting to be a cop, running from the cops, I think, in high school. Went to college, went to a junior college, played some football, didn't work out, tried it again, moved to California, wanted to be a firefighter. They weren't hiring white males back then, which was kind of ironic.
Yeah.
And I turned to law enforcement because I kind of wanted that excitement. I was working in a grocery store and I couldn't stand being caged up. And I said, okay, well, if the cops are hiring, I'm gonna test. So I tested for LAPD, CHP, and Utah Highway Patrol, and I got all 3 of them. I got to choose, and my parents said, hey, why don't you move back home? And so I took the lowest paying job, came back. And I absolutely loved it. I really loved my career, and got introduced into canine about 4 or 5 years into my career, and kind of took that and ran with it. And
did you always like dogs?
It was not really. I mean, I had a little dog, we on a farm growing up, but I wasn't.
Did they just look at you and go, I don't know if Ken can train people, but he can probably train dogs?
Yeah, you know what I mean? They're like, you know what? He's a little too harsh for the people, but let's give him a dog.
That's right.
And dogs are a little more forgiving, and they don't say anything, right? So they can't tell on me.
No human resources issues with dogs.
Yeah, they don't talk to him and say, you got issues. I said, hey, you say something, I'm not feeding you, bro. I got into that, and kind of, maybe Mark knows the story on that. It started out a small program, and they kind of gave me the keys, and I I grew
He
it.
exploded.
It was a lot of fun. And then I looked down one day and I was spending a ton of time doing that, not making any money. And that's when I got introduced to you guys and I got into business and I learned so much. Dude, I love that time of my life. Made a lot of friends, like Primerica people. I run into them now every once in a while. I got tons of stories about that and good people. I miss them. And I got a little scared, we went through a recession and I wasn't as tough as you guys. And I went back and my last 8 years was good. I worked a little bit in the school. Mm-hmm. I coached a lot of football, which I loved, and retired as lieutenant from a small county up north, and here I am now.
Awesome.
And so now I sell law enforcement equipment. The very guy that was coming into me to my office offered me a job, and I took it and jumped ship about 2 years ago. And so I'm still involved with them. Sometimes they frustrate me, so I know what a citizen feels like once in a while because you order stuff and they want it tomorrow, and the way of the world, that ain't happening. So
I want to make mention about Ken. So the Highway Patrol had 3 canines at the time that he got involved, and then he took that and expanded it by 7 dogs to 10 dogs, and he was running the program. So to run the program from 3 is manageable, but to 10 dogs, especially 7 brand new guys, and I was one of those 7. I'd never had a dog, no idea about dogs, and sometimes that was a little bit better of a handler than maybe somebody who thought they knew everything about dogs, and so. For sure. One thing that why Ken and I really clicked, I think, was he was very passionate and he was a professional at what he did. He wasn't just in the profession, because you can be in a profession and not be a professional. Mm-hmm. And everybody looked up to him, and I just hooked my wagon on his wagon, and I was his shadow, and I would show up. Even before I was in the program, once I learned about who Ken was, I would just show up and just watch the canine training, and I would pitch in and volunteer where I could or be a decoy, and Ken was somebody that I really latched onto my whole career in dogs and in SWAT. He was one of our SWAT commanders, one of our SWAT sergeants, and then at this last department that he was with, he was the SWAT commander for the whole county for 2 counties.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so Ken is somebody that's not just done nothing wrong with we call him the road dog, just that, go out in the patrol or just doing your thing. Ken had so much more to give than to just go do his job and fly under the radar. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that was really attractive to somebody like me and to a lot of other guys as well that he impacted and influenced throughout the years.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. That's awesome.
That was way too much praise, by the way.
I
got more.
He showed up, but I recruited him. I mean, I wanted him on my team. So I got to tell you, the first time I met Mark, BYU Utah football game, it was a crazy ending. BYU ends up winning. He's down on the field, okay, and they're trying to keep people off the field. And this Utah fan sprints out of nowhere, and the commissioner is actually sitting over here. We're yelling at each other, going, "Hey, what a great game!" And I look down, and this kid runs, and Mark turns around and decleats this guy.
So I'm in my Highway Patrol uniform with my hat on.
He's working security down there, and just decleats this guy, the best. And I'm a football coach, so I'm like, that's a dude that you want to hook you know what I mean?
Yes.
You start a special ops team, that's the guy you want. And the next thing I know, one day I'm training dogs and someone goes, "Hey, there's a Highway Patrol car over there." I'm like looking over there, I go, I don't know if I know that guy. And once I put it 2 together, I was like, okay, I want this guy. Yeah. If you can do that, you can do this.
You qualify.
And he was a superstar on the team, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the standard when everybody, after Mark, I was like, hey, this is, do it like Mark does it. I didn't have to coach anything. I was like, hey, watch that guy. And
right.
So we had a great relationship.
So we got to somehow articulate, because you both of you are guys that come into a situation and you've got, I don't know if magnetic personalities are the right term to use, but you have the ability to just create, I don't know, just excitement and not just fluff, but good energy, and everything you both seem to touch seems to multiply and expand in a very positive way. So we got to try to break that down. Hopefully people will catch that here today. And you've both done that in business. Ken, you said you weren't tough enough. You were definitely tough enough. You just had to make a pivot, and that's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes things in life happen that we don't see coming, and it's okay to make changes. I mean, I sold my financial business a year and a half ago, and I don't look at it as quitting. It was time to pivot for me and for my family, and so we're just going a different direction, right? So if anybody thinks that either one of you aren't tough enough, they don't know you, because we've seen. I remember one time, in fact, you reminded me of this a couple weeks ago, how you were working so hard in law enforcement and then building your financial business that you ended up in the freaking hospital
with an IV. Hey, you got to drink some water once in a while, dude.
Yeah, because you like work all your shifts and stop by and do appointments in between when you could, and you just made it work, right?
Yeah, it was a blast.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about these dogs. What kind of dogs were they? I mean, the dogs that we see, the Belgian Malinois, is that what
Malinois.
Malinois?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They're athletes.
Yeah.
They're unbelievable dogs. So talk about those a little bit. I mean, how did you find them? What was it like working with them?
I think, and it's just kind of the ebb and flow. Law enforcement equipment gets better, and I think dogs got better. For years, they used German Shepherds. They still use the German Shepherd, and also discounting that breed. But there was a propensity to get some hip dysplasia just because the back, their rounded back. They were a heavier dog. And then all of a sudden we found these Malinois started coming out of Europe as well. And I mean, they could stand right here and jump up on a 6-foot ledge that long, that wide and do their work.
Very agile.
Yeah. Lighter, more agile, less susceptible to some of the genetic diseases that the shepherd was. Mm-hmm. And so but when they first came out, they were like an alligator their genetics,
it's just high strung.
Yeah. Their drives were through the roof, and it took a lot to train them. And how I got started is I got the worst dog ever. He had every training issue known to man. And I had to kind of reach out and you had to be humble and go, and I was calling California and I was calling Minnesota and going, hey, what do you do with this? How do I do that? So I had to learn to get my resources, and which I think the other two handlers had like push button dogs. And they didn't really have to put as much effort into it. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be really good at it. So I reached out there and I went to everybody, and I ended up training, people going, hey, why don't you come and show me how to do that? And so,
the lesson learned is you look at those three handlers, those three original handlers, the two that had just push button easier dogs, not easy, but easier dogs. Then you had Ken, who had the toughest dog. And though nothing against those other two handlers, but who became the best? Mm-hmm. Is the one who had the biggest challenges, who humbled himself and sought out other information, and became the best. Not just so that him and his dog Ricky could be the best, but look at what he did. He transformed the entire, not just the highway patrol, but the entire program in the state of Utah. Is a go-to program. People come throughout the United States, throughout the world, or even overseas. In big part of what Ken established here in Utah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know what this guy's done for.
And what I think I loved about training other people was I put myself in your shoes, like going, I know how you feel, man. Let me help you do that. And that became a passion of mine to say, you know what, that dog will work. Mm-hmm. You just got to work him. Mm-hmm. So, man, I could go all day with analogies, and
that's cool.
I think, but the being in business with you guys helped me understand, wow, that's what that means. So
just you mean the coachability type stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Being tough. Doing it when you don't want to do it. All that kind of stuff. Kind of that's what attracted me to the business. Is man, that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah. So what's the difference between having a dog and not having a dog in law enforcement? Is it? I mean, I'm sure there's good and bad. Probably.
It's a lot. I'll tell you. I'll answer. Having a dog is like having a 6-month-old child, and for as long as you cannot take your eyes off it.
A 6-month-old child that nobody else can take care of.
Right.
That you are.
You're it.
Yeah, you're it.
The first year, I never spent one night away from Ricky.
So they're with you all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, they go home with you.
Yeah. I didn't even dare kennel him somewhere else because I had done that one time, and it was a nightmare.
You both had little kids when you had these dogs, so you had to be careful about that too. Because
Yeah, my dog was my first dog. We washed him out of the program. He wasn't good, and then the dog that I ended up sticking with was he was over the top. And we actually washed out the handler because the handler couldn't handle him. And so I got that dog, and I was scared to death because I watched that dog eat this other handler.
Yikes.
And I come to find out I just needed to become the handler to be able to handle that dog, and ended up being one of the best drug dogs, one of the best SWAT dogs.
Really
amazing. But that has to do with it. It's a team, right? Mm-hmm. And so we had an instructor used to call it, you're a race car driver. That's a Formula One car. We need a driver to do that. Not everybody could drive a Formula One car.
Yeah.
And Mark could do that. And I mean, and it's the desire too. I'm not going to be defeated here.
Sort of the dog sense. If you can tell that, can they sense if you're confident or not?
It runs up the lead. Yeah, it runs up the lead. And we got that dog. That guy.
So if you're not the alpha, they're going to be the alpha.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So it's a pack mentality.
Are they always males?
No.
Okay.
No.
Some females. More males than females.
Yeah, more. It was harder to find the female dog that met the criteria, but it's not like we couldn't do it. It was just they were just few and far between.
All right. Not as big, not as
usually not as big in stature, but the drives were still there once you found it. Just not as many genetically. It's all about the genetic blueprint, right, for a dog, and the genetic blueprint just didn't fall in the female dog as much as the male. Right. That'd be my analogy to it.
Cool.
And Ken would know. So these original 7 dogs, he flew to, was it Holland?
Yeah.
That he went to and handpicked
the Netherlands.
These dogs.
Really?
Yeah. And then flew back with them. And I remember all us new handlers met him at the Salt Lake airport. It was this big to-do. The news was there, and 7 dogs showing up. You met your dog for the first time.
All these layers that are coming out right now, I didn't know about you.
Yeah. So it was the real deal. It wasn't just like, hey, let's pick that dog.
It was cool because I got to pick my team. I got to pick the dogs, and then I had the team first. We went through a handler selection, and then we had these dogs. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, that dog, this personality fits with him. And for the most part, we hit it off. You know what I mean? There were occasionally the dog didn't work out, but that was a genetic issue that it didn't manifest itself until we started with the training, but it was a blast.
Cool.
And then we're like, oh yeah, by the way, you're gonna be sergeant too. Like, what? Like, okay, you're gonna get promoted. Here's your dog, and by the way, make this program.
You're
work.
running the program.
To start the program, I got a donation. I went to the commissioner walked over to me one day and he goes, hey, we got 3 dogs. I just talked to Nebraska Highway Patrol. They have 17.
Wow.
They have a team going on, and I'm like, commish, cut the checkbook.
Need money.
Give me a check.
Yeah.
And he's like, find it out. So I walked into American Nutrition and can I see the owner? And he's like, yeah, come on in. Really nice guy. And he's going, I'm like, yeah, I'm Ken with the Highway Patrol. And what I'd like to do is he goes, Ken, how much you need? And I threw a number out there. He wrote the check and handed it to me. And I was like,
they wanted it done.
I'm like, okay, now what do I do with it? And
so private donation, private company.
Wow.
And walked in and handed the commissioner, and they said, okay, get on a plane. Because you can't select dogs in the United States for various reasons back then. It could be different now. Just because
Humane Society type
well,
stuff?
no. So over there, sport dog is a way of life, and it is against their moral code to get out of the genetic lines and breed the dogs with somebody else. Where America was just like, hey, we'll make money on it. So whatever's going to make us money, we'll get it, spit it out. In Europe, that wasn't the case, and so they were very true to the line. And so we went over there and selected them, and that's where the best dogs in the world were. By the way, that's where the SEALs would go over and get their dogs.
Oh, really?
To work. The dog that found Osama bin Laden's boss. What was his name?
I don't remember.
They found him down in the hole. That was a dog from the same kennel.
Really?
That did that. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So you guys get these dogs all trained up, and then were you a part of SWAT at the same time as you were doing all that? Or was that a different?
So they saw our program and how successful they were, and they're like, "Hey, we need this option." And I met up with a guy named I can't not mention Lane Kritzer, who worked for another department that kind of took me under his wing, and he started developing this SWAT dog program. And we realized that you can't just make the SWAT team come over to the dog. You had to kind of integrate the dog into the team.
Okay.
And
as a tool, just like the SWAT has other tools, the dog was just a tool that really had never been integrated with SWAT teams, at least in our area.
In our area. Well, and at the time in the United States, it was relatively new. Like some of the Las Vegas PD was doing it, LAPD was doing it, and some teams integrated real well, some teams didn't. But so we started a SWAT dog school. Lane started a SWAT dog school. But we integrated into our department's SWAT team, which at the time was a full-time team. So I got kind of taken over there and said, hey, go to SWAT school and pass that, and then you can be on the team. And so that's how we did it.
Cool.
And they wanted us, and so it was just a natural marriage. We were a full-time team back then, special operations.
Okay.
One of the funnest times of my career was being full-time SWAT.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, awesome.
It was great.
So you guys had basically a 20-plus year career. You're still, I mean, again, you're still involved. You're still, it's been longer than that. But, looking back on that career, you had a lot of different experiences. I'm sure you've had some great ones, maybe some not so great ones, maybe some spiritual experiences. What are some that some things that you've maybe that come to mind when I say what's one of the most memorable? I don't know if you call them a mission or just maybe you were out on patrol and something happened. What are some of your favorite memories that you had that you were able to really help people, made an impact, or maybe, well, let's start with that.
Something that comes to mind to me was something. It wasn't a big incident. It was a family fight, and went to this apartment building, and there was a couple of us there. Once we got everything calmed down, I was talking with the guy, with the husband, and there was, nothing physical, but it was getting heated. It was moving that direction, and I remember just asking him what was going on, and what a lot of officers do, and I was doing this in the past as well, is I would show up as the cop. I'm Sergeant Nichols, or I'm Deputy Nichols, or Trooper Nichols, and I would do my thing as a cop and not let down my guard, because you got to keep your guard up, for safety purposes, but let down my persona to be able to connect and relate with this person. And I remember him mentioning about just, the argument that they were having about finances and about, his own self-worth and about depression. And we got into that, and I had this distinct impression to relate to him some of my experiences, because we'd gone through financial challenges. We'd gone through depression. Jen and I had gone through some, financial or some marriage challenges. And I remember just breaking down with this guy. I don't even know this guy. And I'm standing in his apartment, breaking down with him. And that was probably one of the most memorable. And it just reminded me that's what life's about, is take the experiences that you have, even the bad ones, they're for a purpose and a reason, and to be able to pay that forward. My experience to be able to hopefully inspire, and I've never seen him since. I don't know what happened, but just give somebody some hope or some belief, or just connecting with somebody on a personal level or a spiritual level, whatever the situation might be.
It's awesome, and that's something I'm sure he'll always remember. What an awesome thing, looking at somebody as they're your brother versus you're a cop and he's the bad guy, right? Because I don't know, there's many just naturally bad guys. I think they, things going on in their life, and they make mistakes.
Make choices, yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. Thanks for sharing.
Right.
Ken, how about you? What
and it kind of, as you're talking about that, I think the first part of my career when we were in special operations, SWAT and K-9 was like, you come in, like it's an active incident. So you're in and out in 100 miles an hour. And then, so the first part of my career, I was a sergeant with the Highway Patrol K-9 and then did the business, left, went back, and they asked me to go in the school to be the school resource officer at the high school. And I coached football. So it was appealing because the hours were appealing, but man, I just did not want to, the kids drove me crazy. So I went in there kind of begrudgingly, and I did that for probably about 4 or 5 years, 5 or 6 years, and I really enjoyed it. But one of the things that that human element is seeing how hard it was as a parent, and seeing the parents break down when their kids did something wrong. I'm like, man, I've been there too, man. So that human element and being able to relate with them and slow down, and like, man, it's just, I can't just kick the door open and go in there and fix this situation. This is something, this poor kid that's doing something like this, or has these, stealing, whatever, fighting, you look back and it's their home life. And then, so you want to blame the parent, and the next thing you know, the parent's sitting in front of them and they're crying because they're working 3 jobs. They're doing the best that they can. So that human element, it made me a better parent, because even my wife said back in the day is I kind of, when the kids were younger, I kind of treated them like dogs, like you do or die, like, hey, get it done, get over here. You know what I mean? Bad boy. And I was a lot more, I think I have 4 kids, 2 older, 2 younger, and I think the 2 younger ones got the kinder, softer, gentler kid. But those experiences in the school and understanding that what these kids go through, and don't get me wrong, there were some turds in the school that I wish I could kicked out sooner. But man, everybody's got a story. and digging deep and seeing what those people are going through and what that kid, and we all have to go through this structure. We all have to show up to school and do this and then go to lunch man, some of the challenges they have before they even get to school is just eye opening, and it opens your heart up, and you want to, and I cried with a couple parents too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Home life can be tough today. There's so many different things pulling at us and everything else.
Yeah.
So we need to talk more about that here in a minute, just about family life and how you guys have balanced it all and how you've been able to, have, when I say successful family, it doesn't mean things are perfect, right? My family's far from perfect, but we hopefully try to do enough of the right things to keep us together, to overcome, because overall it's great.
Yeah.
Overall I feel very blessed. How about, I can't imagine some of the, and I've heard some of your stories, but what's maybe your top, I don't know, your top story where you had the most adrenaline going, you had to calm down, you had to keep a straight head, a chase. What comes to mind when the scariest moment as a law enforcement?
Man, and people ask me that, and there's so many of them and it's been a long time, and so you just kind of try to. I think doing a dog search one time with a suspect that had raped his neighbor, and just the adrenaline going after him, and we ended up doing like a 6-mile track. And my dog was not a great tracker. So when they tracked, he trailed. So he ran, his head's up. And I'm running this entire time. And we finally get this guy. He kind of goes into some brush, and I let the dog go, and he had the baggy pants on. And so Ricky had him by the pants, missing all the important parts, dragging this guy out. And when I got done, I just kind of looked back like, man, we just did a 6-mile track, and I'm exhausted, but that was a lot of adrenaline there. And I think one other one was Mark and I did together with the highway patrol. We had a suspect run from us after a chase around Nephi. And
in a car.
Yeah, in a car. Mm-hmm. So our SWAT team, he ran up into the hills and kind of bedded down. So he called us. So me and Mark and some snipers, they took us up in the helicopter, dropped us off. Then the helicopter came back, and the snipers hung out the helicopter to do cover for us.
Dang.
And Mark and I are searching, and Reggie's doing all the searching, and he is tired. It is blazing hot. I remember there was a rock that gave a little bit of shade, like probably that much. And I just remember Reggie just stopping at that one point.
Trying to get some shade.
Yeah, just trying to get some shade.
Yeah.
He
had drank, and I had water for me, water for him. He had drinking all his water and all of my water. Yeah. That's how hot it was.
Yeah.
Man.
And we're up on the side of a mountain in like a little bit of a ravine. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden Reggie's going,
just takes off.
He hooks this scent. And and to me as a dog trainer, that's the most, finding man.
Yeah.
Biting man was the I don't want to say icing on the cake, but
cherry on top.
but finding man, using that tool, that olfactory system, that sniffer to find man that we would have walked by 100 times out of 100. Right. And Reggie whipped on this guy, and he had got under a log and put some branches and leaves over him. Reggie gets him, and by the time he catches this guy, I understand he is gassed. Just like we would be at the end of a workout, and then go ahead and apprehend that guy over there, that 250
go fight him.
pound. Go fight him. And Reggie's doing it. So he gets him. The guy gets up. He bites him a couple times and let go. And we train the dogs to bite and hold on. But the terrain, we're down a hill.
He's exhausted.
And this guy's running, and Reggie gets him, takes him down. He gets back up and goes. And pretty soon, and then the helicopter comes in.
Just like the movie, just coming over the hill.
It was amazing. And Reggie's going down, and me and Mark are running down there as fast as we can.
We're calling it out on the radio.
And the snipers are hanging out the helicopter, and this guy's just like, okay, I'm done. And Reggie's biting him, then coming off, that was amazing. We get him down, and I have to do the bite review. So I go and get him, and I have to look at his wounds on there, and I'm like, half of me is just like, you turd, man, And he's sitting there, and he goes, man. He goes, that's the scariest situation of my whole life. I go, why didn't you just, just stand up and put your hands up? But yeah, that was probably the most adrenaline and that, and again, that was, the Marc and Ken show. That was a lot of fun, and, and finding a load of dope would be the next thing.
Okay.
So, and we had quite a few of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, big rush.
Yeah.
So our dogs were dual purpose. They could find drugs as well as, they were trained to apprehend men
Right.
or find or search. And
more bang for your buck. And then,
Yeah.
and most of these guys, we were a full-time team at first, and then they broke us up, put us out into an area. So they had to work their duties as a regular trooper plus train dogs and keep him proficient. And that took a lot of time. So it was hard to find. That's why we kind of handpicked the handlers, because they had to be willing to work on their own. And then you take them home, and you still got to feed them.
Yeah.
You still got to clean up all the messes.
Yep.
And there were a lot of them. Somebody asked me one time, he goes, what did you miss about dogs when you get done? Or what don't you miss? I go, cleaning up turds.
Crap all day. Yeah.
All day.
Yeah.
All day, every day. But
So what did you guys do to train yourselves for those type of high pressure situations? Was it just experience, or did you do things in training that helped you calm your nervous system and breathing?
I think it was, we train, dog guys train once a week. So
mandatory 8
SWAT.
hours a week training plus SWAT training every week.
So you're in that, you're trying to put that dog in that environment, as many different environments you can. So, it's the dog behavior, and every incident was a little bit different. But I just think we train so much.
I think just putting the dog through the training, the dog doesn't know any different if it's a real scenario, a real situation with a bad guy, or if it's a training scenario.
And that's how you keep it. Right?
Absolutely. And as well as us, we know as humans, is our subconscious only knows what you tell it. And so if you're going through these training scenarios, when you get into an actual scenario, it's all, whether it's physically or mentally exhausting, that that doesn't matter at the time,
right?
Because people's lives are on the line. Your life is on the line. Your teammates, your dog, even the suspect. We weren't out there to injure, to hurt anybody. We were out there to protect. And
that's why you use the dog. Because you can call it off. You can't call a bullet off.
Yeah.
Or a taser or something like that. You can call the dog off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And with that said, kind of, Mark, is you talked about earlier about, can the dog tell? You had to make your training so realistic that the dog couldn't tell, because when you got into a real situation, some handlers went from here to 100 miles an hour. That dog's like, what? Dad's going crazy here.
Yeah.
I can't even function because he's too wound up. And then in training, you're sitting here like this, up sipping a coffee, and the dog's doing, he gets that. He feeds off that.
Sure.
So the sooner you realize that, the more realistic your training was. And I think that's what we really did a good job with, because the Highway Patrol allowed us to, the new program, full-time team, and we took it really seriously. We trained as realistic and live as possible.
Setting up real scenarios in cars or up in the mountains. We went up in the mountains for a weekend. And we deployed it out of the Highway Patrol helicopter in training for the exact reason that the helicopter took us up that day, where we apprehended that guy. Had we not previously trained that, maybe the dogs would have freaked out getting up in the helicopter.
Yeah. Sounds like the dogs held you accountable as much as you had to hold the dogs accountable.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Because if you weren't performing, they wouldn't perform.
Absolutely.
And then the results don't lie. You're not finding the drugs. You're not finding the man. And that's from not training. Because there's handlers out there that don't train, that don't take it serious.
Right.
Just in life, there's people who are not performing. It's not the results they're not getting. It's they're not training. They're not preparing for whatever.
It is in life. It's almost like raising kids too, because the dog won't work for free.
Yeah.
In training, he's getting a reward. When he's biting that man, that tail's wagging. He's having a blast, because that is his reward. And there's sometimes when that dog doesn't get when he can't when he's not doing what we want him to do, finding the narcotics or the man, he'll look at you like going, "Hey, reward me. I'm ready. I'm doing everything I can do. This is what we do in training." You're like, "No, you're not. You got to find that dude."
Yeah. And
he wants rewarded. He wants rewarded right away, just like kids. Like, no, you're not getting rewarded yet.
Yeah. Interesting. So, were there times when you would be, going about your day and you weren't able to do what you needed to do because of, I don't know what's the right word, the law or rules that, you needed to call a play, you needed to get something done to protect somebody,
right.
and you couldn't do it. You had to stand down. Do things get in the way? Is it more so today than
not so much back then? And we didn't. And I'll say this: I don't think we ever had any lawsuits. No. I never replaced an item that the dog indicated. They were aggressive indicating dogs, and they would indicate on a bag or something, some lady's Gucci bag,
and ruin it,
doing it,
Yeah.
you know, and you didn't find narcotics in there, but they smelled the odor that had been in there, and they're like, oh yeah, you're gonna have to replace that bag. Never got a bill.
Okay.
Never got a bill. Those dogs did their job, but putting into it, but no, I don't think so. I think sometimes if the dog did do something, it was the handler. I remember a situation. We were at the dunes one time, and this young man ran, and I got there, and I kind of got fed into those guys. Hey, just ran. I'm telling Mark. I'm like, Mark, he just ran. Get the dog out. And he's like, hey, Sarge, can't deploy on that. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right, Mark. Yeah, let's not do that. but I think handlers. Yeah. But we didn't have very much. I mean, we picked pretty. You know, not only were they, I think they physically fit and switch, you know, and they were good in their job before them, but they were good men too. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They weren't out making rogue decisions. I think we had one at one point, and he got rid of himself before he even, you know, was working the dog. Yeah. But
I think more today, as things have been going through
much more scrutinized
the courts and through the social media, and you know that very small. The small percentage of people who are very loud voice, you know, either anti-police or the whatever it might be. I remember having a conversation with my last crew that I had is, you know, there was a situation that somebody was in an officer back east was in a deadly force situation, and he didn't take action. He got injured. He didn't get killed, but he actually got shot. And it came out afterwards that he didn't because of all of the pressures from those who have been in a deadly force situation and took action. And, you know, there's people who've gotten fired. And I told my guys, I said, don't ever hesitate to do what you're trained to do. You guys know what you're doing and have the confidence. Don't ever let that creep in the back of your mind of should I or shouldn't I. You just do what you know how to do. What we actually trained on a weekly basis, just like we train dogs. We would set up scenarios and have training so that when the situation came up, they were able to make a confident decision. And I told them, we've got your back. The city's got your back. And first and foremost, you're going home.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I think, you know, we just went to Boston a couple weeks ago, went to Plymouth, and kind of learned how the pilgrims would handle misbehaving people, right? And they put them in the I forget what they call it.
I remember that. Right? Yeah.
Or they would tie their hands behind their back with their ankles to the person that they were fighting with or whatever, and that's how they corrected it, right? And nobody ever, there wasn't like litigation and crap and lawsuits back then that would, you know, you can't do that. And I think it's so important that you know, cops and you know, anybody in law enforcement has the ability to do what they need to do to protect the public.
Right.
And I mean, I guess I get it. I guess there's bad cops too, right?
Sure, absolutely.
That make mistakes. There's good and bad and everything. But hopefully, we can find a good way to make sure that policemen can do their job and not be worried. Man, if this guy's shooting at me and I shoot him back and I kill him, I'm not going to jail. Right. He was shooting at us or shooting at, you know, the public.
You know what, we're talking about that. One of the experience I had at the school resource officer was teaching a law enforcement class. And part of it, I would, the first of class, I'd bring up KSL and I said, hey, what is the number one story always on there? And it's a law enforcement situation. It's somebody that's gotten in trouble and the media loves to jump on that. And we kind of watch the cops' actions. And at first I would run it without anything. I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't prep them because I'd been in that guy's shoes before, and I know what I'm thinking. But from their standpoint, they're going, "Oh, he did it wrong." Case in point, guy was shoveling snow, knocking on elderly people's door, and going, "Hey, I'm going to shovel your snow, and you're going to pay me." And they were like, "Oh, we don't want you to do that." So they finally call the cops. Officer shows up. The guy starts out really, you know, he's really calm, and then he gets going, and his shovel had broke or something like that, and he raises the shovel to go get this guy. The cop falls on the ground, and when I showed the kids that without interruption, they're like, "Oh, he's wrong. He should have never shot that guy." And when we slowed it down, and I said, "Okay, here's the information that he's getting." He shows up. He's trying to keep it at the lowest level. He's trying to reason with this guy. Guy doesn't want to reason with him. Doesn't want to talk to him. Doesn't want to give him a name. And then all of a sudden, he attacks him. And he gets him on the ground. I go, now look at that. And we freeze framed it. And we said, look at that shovel. So it had broke, and I go, and it was plastic. I go, can you take that and stick that in somebody and hurt him? And they're like, oh yeah. And every kid in the thing, I would have shot him. You know, so he wants to go home to his family too. He didn't go there. He didn't put himself in that situation. No. That gentleman had some issues, had some mental issues going on there, which I think in the first of our career, Mark, we didn't understand that.
We didn't deal with. We didn't really understand.
And we didn't understand it. And then the more it came out, but you can't hesitate with that. We had some training on that. But at the end of the day, I'd love to get eye to eye with this guy. But man, he's got a gun or a weapon. He wants to hurt me. I got to keep my distance. And I got to do. You learn how to. I think the best cops are communication. I always taught the kids. I go, what's the number one thing that you need to have to be a police officer? Well, you got to have muscles. You got to have endurance. You got to be able to shoot. You got to be able to talk.
Your words.
Yep. You got to be able to talk and do exactly what Mark did to that guy. Is show some empathy. And get down on his level. Like I'm no better than you. I got a job to do, buddy. And if we can handle it at the lowest level, which I always thought, let's take care of it that way. But there's some things I'm bound to do, and there's some things you're bound to do, right, buddy? Right. So decisions we make.
That's really good. I mean, words are so powerful. Wars are started with words. Wars are ended with words.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
And, we learned about that. The strongest muscle in the body is the tongue, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And because we can do everything with that. That's some good stuff there.
Yeah.
How did you guys? So I mean, that's law enforcement, but you guys have also done some big things in business, financial services. Mark, you still have your agency. You're running that right now. And how did you? And obviously, I know, Ken, you said your older kids probably got the more intense version of Ken than the younger. Yeah. And I think that I'm the same way. There's no different because there's seasons in our life where we're maybe more overwhelmed, more is going on. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are working 2 or 3 jobs or working a job and trying to start a business or in business and they're stressed out. What are some words of wisdom you would have on either one of you on, how to keep your marriage intact and keep a good relationship with your kids and, balance all of that?
Starts with your partner.
Absolutely.
100% who you choose your partner. I mean, you can have an unsupportive one, and I was so lucky to have, and you guys are too, to just have a great co-pilot. She's she's the pilot, I'm the co-pilot.
Right.
And just keeping it together. And, when I was going through those things at home, and I'd walk out the door, she'd bring it back together. Like, hey, Dad's a little stressed out. This is how he does things. My kids, I am what I am today. My kids are what they are today because of Carrie Purdy. The effort she put in.
Absolutely.
But I look at some people's marriages and I look at some cops that don't make it and nothing on their partners, but I made a really good draft pick.
Yes.
Back in the day,
right?
You know what I mean?
Right. I totally agree, and like you say, nothing against those who that. I mean, we don't know.
Nah,
we've all gone through it.
We don't know their situations,
right? And we've all gone through our challenging times, and just thank goodness for whatever reason, we've had good partners. We've been able to hold it together. So I wanted to get your point of view on that because
I think if somebody. Jen and I, we have a great relationship. Like I love her more today. I'm not married to her today because I said I do 26 years ago. I'm married today because of what we've grown in what our future is. And I think sometimes, so what does somebody do if there's a listener out there? What does somebody do if they're married and they don't have that co-pilot and they don't have that engagement? What do you do? And something that I've learned is because I used to could make a list of things that Jen's got to change this. She's better change this. She's got to change this. We're going to do better if she. And then I realized her checklist is because I have a checklist.
Reflection, right?
Is because the things that I've got to change. And when I've humbled myself and I've really focused on working to become a better version of me. I remember one time she called me out because in business, we were are big on self-improvement and growing your leadership and your mindset. And she said, Mark, this was years ago. She said, Mark, you read all these leadership books. When was the last time you read a relationship book? I'm like, oh, thank you. And so now I read a leadership book and then a relationship book, a leadership book, a relationship book. And so we have to, especially as law enforcement, our egos keep us alive. Our egos keep us safe because we're that heightened awareness. the situational awareness that we've got to know what's going on, be aware of everything that's going on. We've got to have the confidence to go in and take care of a situation with no hesitation. So our ego keeps us alive, and it also can kill our spirit. It can kill our relationship. And so it's a tough challenge for law enforcement out there. Not just law enforcement, but I think in general today, is people get so focused on what they feel like I felt like I need to do better in business. I got to, hit my goals, and I got to do this. And I was leaving behind what the reason I was saying was most important. I'm doing it for the family. I'm doing it for the kids. I'm doing it to hit our goals. In reality, I'm doing my thing and she's doing her thing.
Yeah.
And so I think if what creates that co-pilot is to be able to, for us as men, is to really step up to the plate, which is to get rid of our ego when it comes to our relationship, or when it comes to parenting our children, or even in our careers, being that humble servant leader in whatever role it might be.
Yeah, good.
No, that's a great point.
Good wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, if you want the best in your partner, or if you don't have a partner, you're looking for a partner, and you're worried about finding the best partner, become the best partner, right?
Sure.
And whatever that might mean. And I think we've all got gifts. I mean, I think that, we are very similar as far as our drives, a personality type, go provide, go win big, focus.
And 100%.
100%.
Yeah, right.
And it is easy, for us to forget about the whole reason we are doing it, and we are doing it for our families. Yeah. But we get so focused on winning big, we're like, and we forget that it's more than just the secular or tangible stuff we need to provide. It's the emotional, it's the the time and the relationship stuff that is can be a challenge when you are busy and you're working hard and you're after. And I think it's just a matter of stepping back all the time. I think reading those good books is a good help, but you got to step back and look at the big picture and take some time. You just got to force yourself.
Well, and I think what you said too is you got to get rid of the ego a little bit, because your ego drives you to look good in front of your peers, right? But at the end of the day, who you really need to look good for is that lady at home who's keeping it together. And that's what's so great about them, is they do all these things with no ego, right? Yeah. And that never influences them. Like, I don't care how I look right there. Yeah. I care how this looks at the end of the day. And you're like, wow, yeah, you're right. So yeah, I can attest to that. My ego, when I coached, when I did S.W.A.T, it was all about how I looked in front of those people right there. And then I have to come and face her and my kids, and she, and very ego driven. So the give and take, that type A personality, that's what comes with it. Is that ego.
And when we get rid of our ego at home and build up our relationships, we'll actually perform better when we need an ego. When we need to be confident, when we need to have that A personality, that drive, that go. Yeah, we'll perform better because we've taken care of this.
I always seem to fail on a daily basis on this, of just have faith that you did everything that God wants you to do. Everything else would work out. Sure. And I find myself every day trying to do it all myself. I got to go make sure this happens, instead of going, okay, am I living a good spiritual life? Am I putting my wife and kids first? Am I putting God first? But because of that, sure. And then I'm doing all those things, and then I'm also giving my best in business and with with my relationships in that world. And I don't know. I think it's for me, if I remember to have that faith that things are going to work out, I'm more calm and I can look at things more clearly, and I am better in every way. And when I need that ego, right, or I would say, even just that expansion mode type mentality, right? That's what I'm looking for. I want that expansion. Instead of just being an ego, I want to be an expansion. And there's even a difference there, I think. And I'm trying to learn that. And when you're in expansion mode, you're kind of in congruent or in alignment with the universe.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So anyway,
and all of it matters.
I think that's something that law enforcement has a challenge with in general, is because I hear about expansion mode and I think creativity, thinking outside the box and looking for new opportunities. And in law enforcement, we have to be so loyal and dedicated. There's a saying that says, I've got your six. Yeah. You look at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock, I've got your back. You focus on what you're doing. I've got your back. You don't have to worry about anything behind you. I've got you, whether it be in a tactical situation or an emotional situation. And so we're so heightened that sometimes we get so loyal and focused of I've got your six that we forget, hey, there's other things out there that can help me become a better man, become a better person. Well, and that's what, when we first talked, there's no way. I told you, and you mentioned there's no way I would ever do anything else besides law enforcement, because it's almost my identity had become this SWAT guy, this canine guy, the trooper, that's who I was in my mind. But in reality, that's not who I was. I'm a son of God. I'm a father. I'm a husband. That's who I am. I just happen to be in law enforcement. And so and we've all broken out of that tunnel vision of being able to look and expand and get creative, look for new opportunities, look for things that might help us in what we feel is the most important, which is back home.
What was awesome, I remember, sitting down with you and you being in that state of mind, and then Jen, was mega shy back then,
reserved,
right? She decided to take a leap of faith and just give it a try, right? And come to work with us. And so she did, and she got it started, and she started having some good success early on, right? In fact, because of your relationships in the Highway Patrol, she was able to go out and we met some of those guys and recruited some of them. This is, I think, just before Ken came in, right? Yep. And then I don't know, it was a few months later, right? And I asked you a question. I said, Mark, when is the Highway Patrol going to pay your family your dream income for your family? I go, something like that. Yeah. I said, and you recognize it really quick. You go, you're right. I mean, as much as I love the Highway Patrol, as much as that's my passion, my family is the most important. And so you law enforcement was important to you because of, you just really loved what you did, but you also made a decision not to make that the most important thing and put your family first, and came into the financial service industry, which is also very uncomfortable for you. And not only did you come in with a bang, and you set records in our organization early on, and then found Ken, and Ken came in and did the same thing. And so it was just cool to kind of see, you're not just talking this, you've learned this, I've watched you do it. And it's really cool. And
a lot of times it wasn't, for law enforcement, it's not about the money, because we get into law enforcement knowing we're going to work a couple jobs and we're not going to get rich. And so for me, it wasn't about, hey, is your dream income going to make, $500,000 a year, $250,000 a year, so I can, have the big house and drive the nice cars. It was, okay, you make that kind of money, that kind of good money. What kind of opportunities does that provide for your family? To build memories, to now go on vacation, how you want to go on vacation.
Which is way more important.
Absolutely. And build those memories and provide opportunities. The family most involved in sports out of anybody I've ever known, there's no way that they could have done it. It cost a lot of money to play in the club ball, plus, in high school, and you're going 24/7, 365. Yeah. And it's more of the freedom, the opportunity that it brings.
And where that, early in our career, that's all we worried about. What gun did we shoot? What kind of uniform do we have? What kind of car do we have? So the last few years at my old agency, I was a lieutenant, and I got a chance to hire my cousin, who was a great cop, but he was me, 20 years ago. And he wanted to tell me about stories on what he did and how he had the most arrests. And finally I had to sit him down and say, at the end of the day, no one's going to remember that. They're not going to pay you more for those, number one. And nobody cares that you were the narcotics king of the year, But your daughter, your son, being able to hit that baseball and making it to every one of his games, don't miss those. And keep that in mind when you want to dump everything you have into there. At the end of the day, it does pay the bills, but it will. Your son or daughter will never get those time back. And I went through a time like that where, man, my oldest I didn't get to see him until he was senior year. And then I got in business with you guys, and I got an opportunity to watch him his senior year. And I treasure that. Yep. And that's what I said later on. As a matter of fact, we had a meeting with my new department, and the leader said, hey, how many in here love your jobs? And everybody's hand went up. And I'm just looking around going, never going to love anything more than my family. Never again. Never do that.
Yeah.
And he was offended. He called me in. He goes, "Is there something I'm doing wrong?" I'm like, "Nothing you're doing wrong, buddy. Man, I like how you're doing, but nothing's more important than them."
You had your priorities straight.
Yep. And I'll tell you publicly right now. So
yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. And I think, that there's a lot of people that get older in life and they go, "Man, I wish I would have done this. Wish I would have done that." I think you got to be careful with that. I think you got to be careful not to beat yourself up too bad. Because again, God gives us gifts and drive in certain areas for certain reasons. Now, none of us are perfect, so but give yourself some grace too, right? And hopefully people out there can do that. I know someone who's super successful that was just kind of talking to somebody the other day that said, "Man, I wish I would have just not spent so much time, working back in the day." But this person was very influential to me when they were doing that, and actually impacted me in a big way. Yeah. So I look at that, and I mean, I haven't talked to him, but I want to just say, hey, dude, just so you know. Don't be sorry for what you did back then, because I understand you wish this was different, but that was a season of your life when you had everything coming together there, and you were, in my opinion, from what I could tell, doing exactly what God would want you to do, which is go out and impact the world. And he was just in construction is what he was doing, but he was doing it in a big way. And so, and what if he just impacted he set a good example for me. And one of the reasons I came in and built my business early on and had such a strong work ethic is because of the stuff I learned from this guy, right? So, I think, and I don't mean to interrupt you, Brandon, but I think when you guys talk about Mark set records, you set records. I mean, you were talking about
following your lead.
Well, we all, this is important because
but we're sitting at this table because of what you did and what you did, and we're all like-minded, and we all were attracted to that, and we're like, man, what a great leader, and we saw that.
You set the tone. You set the culture for us.
It really was
to thrive in.
It really was. Like, I remember the first time I met Brandon, I was like, man, this guy's this guy. Like, I was afraid. I've been in SWAT training dogs, and here's Brandon Neal, and he looks like he's 12.
Yeah.
And I'm going, and this guy, and he gets up on the stage. I'm like, what?
It's that confidence.
Yeah, And so we set records in this business because we had a great example, and that's what we're saying. You look at your circle of friends, right?
Yeah.
And that tight group, and we haven't been close for a few years, but your influence on me is what I've done today in my sales business. I take more of what you guys taught me than anything, and I think that's what makes me successful.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm excited too. I think we're going to do something bigger here in the near future, right? And doing some things that we're going to work on together. And Jeff's not here, but all of us together, as well as all the other RVPs that are still in the business that are part of my former business, are just what an awesome team, right? We all did something cool together. Because we all were going towards a common goal.
And by the way, my son wouldn't be calling you if I didn't think you, like, I am telling him, you can call that man. Like, I wanted him to meet you guys the other day because he had that mindset, and I was like, I got to know two great examples right there. So that was big for me.
No, I'm excited about that. So, well, good. Anything else you guys want to talk about today that you've been thinking about with life, or that you think could be of value to people that are listening in? I mean, we can go forever, but we usually go about an hour and then we call it good. But we can go. I
have just a thought. I'm meeting with somebody that has really helped me influence me in thinking outside the box to be able to help take care of myself, so that I can help take care of others. And you mentioned it a few minutes ago, that connection that you have that was very successful in construction early on and felt like you missed some things, is something I've learned is we make decisions based on the information we have at that time. And then we grow into a new person, and then we look back and think, man, I wish I would have played that different. I wish I would have done things different. Well, you weren't that man at that point a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago. And so to not beat yourself up, but to use those as stepping stones and learning points. He missed a few, some things from his oldest. He learned, and he could go back and beat himself up. Man, I wish I was there for all his games. And no, you did the best that you could with the information that you had at that time.
Sure.
Yeah.
So to use those as building blocks, whether it be in law enforcement, whether it be in business, whether it be just in life with your kids or your spouse.
Yeah, you want to use the past as a book, not a hammer.
There you
right?
go.
So that's really, you don't want to beat yourself up like with a hammer, but you want to use the book and learn from it. And it's good.
I'd probably say, what I've been thinking about a lot is something that, Brandon, you say, hey, if you're not growing, you're dying. And in your life, and I kind of look back at my life, and, I went, the football thing was big. I had to perform there, I had to put all my effort into there. And then I did law enforcement, and then I did my business with you guys. And then you kind of settle as you get older. You're like going, I've done that, man. I'm going to sit back and watch TV. That's just not my DNA. And I just see people like, when you think you're done, there's always another challenge out. There's always something that you need to pour yourself into to make yourself better. And at the end of the day, it keeps, iron sharpens iron, and you keep sharpening those skills and getting better. And just don't be sedentary. Just keep doing like you're doing. You're growing your business, and you're looking at something else. And we're all growing, like Mark said. We're doing the next thing we do. We're going to do the best of our ability based on the the best that we can do based on the information that we have. But I keep telling my daughter, like, man, you're a great time in life. And she is it is a grind right now in junior college softball.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but babe, I am so happy that you're doing that. It's making you so much better. And she's like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
I'm dying here.
and then I look at myself and going, man, there's some things I need to grind. I need to get, I need to pour myself into that thing too. I can't be just telling somebody else, I'm a little longer in the tooth now, and I haven't arrived. Yeah. So just find something you're passionate about and keep doing it. And then maybe your relationship, like right now, my relationship is making that girl happy, making her happy and doing better. Cause now I have the information, right? Now I have the information.
You're better.
Good. So good. So good today, guys. It's great to know someone for an extended period of time. And we've all lived some life, right? We're still all really young, right?
Yes,
we have a lot of life ahead of us, but we've got some life behind us too. So it's fun to just share thoughts and what we've all learned together. And I just look forward to our future and to building upon the relationships which we have as well. And I think it's life's just going to continue to get better from here. I think David Goggins says, when you think you're done, you're only 40% done.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
So we've got a lot more to do. We haven't even begun compared to what we're going to do. So.
I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah.
When I first learned about this podcast that you and Jeff are doing, I've listened to podcasts. I listen and read a lot of things, and I don't know of anything else that's influenced me and my mindset more than your podcast.
Wow.
And the guests that you have.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
And both of you guys, Jeff too. I didn't know Jeff very well back in the day. And man, what an impressive dude.
He's got incredible insight. Just in the last, year and a half that I haven't really connected with him. That dude's grown. That dude, like
big time.
And as have you. And I look up to you, and everybody that I talk to, I send a link to your podcast at least 3 or 4 times a week. Just people that I'm talking to in conversation.
Wow.
And the best out there.
Doing good things. Well, I appreciate it. Well, I mean, I've always looked up to you guys too, seriously. I mean, coming into my business back in the day, I was a young kid, looked like he was 12, and I looked up to you guys, and it was an honor to have you guys in. I can't believe I've got these people in our business. This is unbelievable to me, just the quality of
like attracts like, my friend.
Yeah. No, for sure, man. So good. Well, good. I was a litlit concerned not having Jeff here that maybe our viewership would go down, but having you guys here, it's going to go through the roof. So, no, I think it's going to be really good. I think people will really like this one. Hopefully people will share this a bunch. Want to encourage everyone to do that. Anytime we're talking about conservative values, or God or, law enforcement, who knows what the algorithm is going to do out there. Right. So, but we can beat it if people like it and subscribe and share it. So we appreciate everybody's help with all that, and we love doing this. And I just want to encourage you all to stay solid, and we'll see you next time.